Good day, friends and neighbors. Scooter coming to you live from the Granville Guitars World Headquarters here in lovely St. Petersburg, Florida. Today is Monday, the 30th of August, 2021. Our thoughts are going out to those in Louisiana struck by Hurricane Ida last night. Looks pretty nasty. The reports are coming in that it was a bad scene. Got friends there and heard back from most of them. It seems like everyone's okay, but it's a mess over there. So anyway, that gives us a reference point for what day this is later on in life. On the bench here, we have a lovely Silverface twin reverb with JBLs. And you'll notice, you sharp-eyed youngsters, on the side there we have the wonderful Cheap Trick stencil. This particular amplifier might be the most well-traveled amplifier in the history of rock and roll. This is Robin Zander's twin reverb from the beginnings, from the club days, all the way through the early 80s, I'm told. This amp is heard on Live at Budokan, one of the largest selling albums ever made. Robin Zander, for those of you who don't know, is one of the best, truest rock and roll singers that's ever been put on the planet. If you don't know about Robin Zander by now, shame on you. Not only has Cheap Trick been around as a unit since the early mid-70s, they still make great records. They still perform all the time. I think they just played in Kansas City last night. What else is to be said? Legend doesn't begin to approach it. You probably have guessed, I'm a big Cheap Trick fan. Always have been. And I'm really excited and pleased to have this thing in here. The current owner just wants to get it tuned up, make sure everything's functional. It currently does not have a reverb tank in it. We may add the reverb to it if all the stuff is still there. Don't know. Don't know the state of the innards yet, the inside or anything. But we're going to take that little journey together, and if that kind of thing interests you, stay tuned, because we're going to get inside this thing and really see what's happening inside of it. See where it's been, what's been done to it. I'm sure it's been opened more than once. The cabinet's been bolted back together more than once. If you look at any Cheap Trick live videos from the club days or on through the early 80s, you will see this amp on stage, sometimes in front of the drum riser, sometimes off to the side, sometimes on a stack of high-watt cabinets. But it was always there, and it was always Robin's live amplifier. So we're going to dig into this thing. Stay tuned. All right, as we cast our gaze across the front panel of this thing, you'll see the ubiquitous Fender logo with no tail on it, as we would expect, and a little R registered trademark next to the R at the end. Pretty standard stuff across the panel here. Most of the knobs look like they're probably original. Some interesting stuff over the top. You see there's a number 42 stencil along with a bunch of missing Tolex. And a number 22 with tape. And then down here you can make out what used to be SL for stage left, which was where this amp was located on stage when the band would play. You can see the missing Tolex piece there. This thing was in and out of a million trucks, in and out of a million shows. Well, probably not literally a million, but certainly a bunch. Now, let's turn this and look at the side here. There is the stencil, and if you look down at the very bottom there in very small writing is an address and a phone number. I'm not going to zoom in too far on it. It must have been their rehearsal or storage facility or something. But yeah, it's a legit Cheap Trick stencil. Part of it's missing. And that stencil in that position is present. I guess there's some very early videos with no stencil on them, but it's still this amp. And then from that point on, every time you see it, you know, get a look at it from the side, and there it is. It's a little gaff tape right there above at the top corner. Some miscellaneous holes, some of which are for the tilt back legs. Let's flip this thing around back here. All right, as we can see, we have the JBL D120Fs. Probably not stock in this amp originally, but it could have been. It's possible. Orange label, as you would expect. Properly wired backwards like JBLs have to be. There's a hinge up there, it looks like, or a bit of metal that somebody's fabricated to help brace the cabinet. There's more than one of those in there, which is kind of funny. And we got our back panel here, as you can see. Courtesy outlet, ground switch, fuse holder, power and standby. F cap is present on the speaker cable. Little tape residue next to the extension speaker there, as if maybe someone put some tape over that at some point or something. I don't know. Maybe it was a label to say that. This back panel is a little bent up, and the chassis is quite bent as well. But then you got your UL label and your serial number down there. And okay, let me pop this back panel here. All right, we got that back panel off, and we can see we have a mongrel set of power tubes. There's a pair of groove tubes, 6L6s, and then there's a pair of boogies, it looks like, in there as well. You know, and amps on the road, not surprising. They just kind of throw in there whatever you got to do. All the tube shields are in place. Tube label is here. It looks like it may have been reinforced or re-glued at some point, but it is there. There's another, let me zoom out here. Let's see if I can get in there. So you can actually see this. There's another little L bracket down in there to embrace the horror, I guess. Also, the top of the cabinet is separating and needs to be re-glued. I'm sure this amp got thrown. You know, when you're on the road, things get thrown around. That's the way it goes. So, yeah, it's a beautiful silver-faced twin with a lot of history. Okay, that's all for the exterior. I'm going to pop this thing open, see what we got inside. All right, we're all up inside of this jewel. And shockingly, friends, this thing is largely original and mostly untouched. These are the correct blue capacitors of the era. These 100Ks through here are all original. Original treble cap. Bypass caps are original. I'm going to replace those. All of these caps through here. Now this is your reverb circuit here. This is going to get redone. I had a conversation with the owner of the amplifier. This is the Silverface Insanity, as I call it. They redesigned the reverb circuit, and I don't know why they did it, to be honest with you. It mostly tends to burn up reverb tubes, the 12AT driver tube, and I'm not fond of the design. So I'm going to probably go to an earlier circuit design on that. We'll add a reverb tank and cables, etc., and get that thing working. But all of this is original, all through here. Have no idea what it sounds like or if it works. Apparently, it's been 20 years since it's been on, so took a close look at all the potentiometers. The normal channel has a odd mishmash of dates, anywhere from 73 to 76. I'm still thinking the amp is a 74, so in order for it to be a 74, those pots some of those would have to have been replaced. This connection here from these two 68Ks right off the jacks, that's been monkeyed with. I don't know if anything's been replaced or whatever, but it's been soldered and unsoldered. As we go down to the other end here, where the pole master volume is, we can see that the switch is destroyed. It's actually falling apart. So what we're going to do is get rid of this arrangement altogether, get rid of the wires to and from the phase inverter, and make it strictly a non-master volume design. So yeah, the master volume thing, if I'm remembering correctly, that came in 74. Anyways, I'm pretty sure it's original power transformer, although it's got a 77 date on it. So, it's hard to say. Was it replaced later and the work that was done is just really good? Could be. Hard to say. It's a cool old amp, and it's definitely Robin Zander. So, one of the things that we are definitely going to do, let me see if I can get up here and get a decent angle on things so you can see. The screen grid resistors are toast, or at least toasty, and there's one swamping resistor in particular right down in there that's got a crack in it. It's really toasty. This here, the grid stopper, the one down right in there, see that crack? So, yeah, they're carbon comps. They're old. If they've been stored for a long time, they get wet, they get dry, they get wet, they get dry. Improper storage. I'm not sure if all of this right here is rust or if it's flux from the solder of that being connected. I'm not sure what that all is, but all of those are going away. All of the screen grids and the grid stoppers, those guys are all going away. We're going to redo all of that. The owner wants to play it. He wants to use it. And to that end, we are going to do everything we can to make sure that it can be used and relied upon. You can see the bias supply caps are original as well, those big white ones. Those will be going away. And am I going to be black facing the bias supply? I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna just replace those caps and then power it up with new tubes and new filter caps. We're gonna see the old filter caps here in a sec. It's still got the original filter caps in it, but I'm gonna just replace values for now. And if the amp sounds good with this old circuit the way it is, I'm gonna leave it. If it sounds lousy, then yeah, I'll probably go ahead and quote unquote blackface the bias supply. But anyway, let's flip it over and see the filter caps. All right, well, this is a pretty good indicator of age here. These are the original high voltage filter capacitors. And if you look at the label there, where it says 235-74. 74 is the year that was made, 24th week. And they're all 74. That's 5th week, 5th week, 5th week. And the final one down there, you can see 74-24. Yep. So those were the 100 microfarads were made at the same time. So we're going to replace all these. They're original. One of them has a little dimple, one of the hundreds up towards the top there. It has a little bit of a dimple going on. Plus, they're just old, 74. What's that, 47 years That's old enough, particularly if, as is the case with this amp, it's going to get played, it's going to get used, it's going to get rocked on. So let's get rocked with it, huh? Here is your reverb transformer right here. And if we look closely at it, we can see that date code is 606 606432. 32nd week, 74. So that's good. The power transformer is 6064. Can't really get to it from this angle as easily as I'd like. Let's see here. Yeah, 6064 on the OT. And the owner of the amp actually put these new chassis bolts and kept nuts on it because when he received it, that poor output transformer was hanging on by one, and the 4 holes had stripped out, so he went with that. Hopefully that thing is still good and still works. There's your choke. And that's a replacement. From a separate manufacturer's A31. It is a 74 from the look of it, but that could very well be a replacement. And strangely, this power transformer is a 77. You know, could have been replaced. The soldering on that thing, though, from the inside, looks stock. It looks original. It's entirely possible someone was just really good at what they did when they replaced it. But, yeah, we got some miscellaneous dirt and, you know, tightening, cleaning, etc. The normal stuff that you would do with any vintage piece. Looks like a couple of sockets have been, or at least one socket's been replaced. Maybe. Let me look closer. No, it's just a little, this one, the lighting made it look a little cleaner and smoother, but I think those are original. Come to think of it, mainly because definitely the screen grids and grid stoppers were original on the insides, and those could not be, well, they could be replaced in exactly the same way, but it'd be hard without, you know, doing something funny to the solder joints to make them look that old. So, hey, there's the grand tour in here. Took all the tubes out. Most of the tubes were older Sylvanias, the preamp tubes rather, and there was 1 or 2 groove tubes in there. We're going to test all those and use what we can. So anyway, I'm going to tear in. All right, we're making progress with this old girl here. This is the contents under the doghouse, as it were, the cap can cover on the underside. It's your reverb transformer right here, just for a frame of reference where we are on the underside of the chassis. We've got the main first node totem pole here. It's 2 F&T 100 UF at 350 volt caps. Those are run in series with each other and in parallel, each one of them with a 220K resistor. You can see one there, and there's another one tucked up under there. And that's to ensure that both of these, even though they're in series, get the same amount of voltage to their respective voltage points. I'm messing with the tripod, sorry. Then we go down to second, third, and fourth nodes right here. And their associated resistors, 2.2K here and 10K here. And all German-made F&T caps. That's what I like to use. I find that they're the most dependable and do the job best. I pretty much just use F&Ts anymore. I've bounced around to a bunch of different brands over the years and been happy for a while with several of them. A lot of companies make good caps. JJ makes good ones. I haven't used Sprague's in a lot of years because there was a little bit of questionable supplying from Sprague back a number of years back, and I've just never gone back. I've just been happy with the F&Ts. So there we go, new filter caps, and now we're going to move on to the innards of the inside, screen grids, etc. Here we go. Okay, work is continuing here on this Robin Zander Twin. As you can see, I was able to clean a little bit of that spot away right around in here. I'm pretty sure that was rust. I'm not sure what spilled in there, but it's pretty bad. You can see the power tube sockets that I've already cleared away, a lot of the wiring and such. I'm going to redo most of the wiring to the power tube sockets because it just wasn't all that great, I didn't think. It's lasted all this time, but I think it's time for a fresh start there. If you look down here, and hopefully I can get this lit up where you can see it. It's kind of hiding under there. This little screen grid, or not screen grid, your screen grid resistor is this guy right here. It's 470 ohms. And the ones tucked underneath between pin 5 and pin 1 right there, I can't get that thing lit up. Hang on a second here. It's right there, and you can see it's cracked in half. I mean, it's done. What causes this? Well, it could be a myriad of things, most likely a shorted power tube. And it probably ran on that for a while, honestly, because the screen grid isn't blown, but the grid stopper is. That one is toasted. So all that's getting replaced, obviously, on all 4 power tube sockets, along with all the wiring and such. I'm just replacing the filament wiring there as well. I like to do that mainly so that I can keep them correct, with pin 7 going to pin 7, pin 2 going to pin 2, and you can see that it's hooked up correctly. It's really hard to measure those filament wires for continuity once they're hooked up, because they're hooked up to a transformer, so continuity is not a constant anymore. So, but if you use 2 different colors for your filament wires, the way Marshall's done forever, you can actually see that they're wired in correct phase with one another. And that's important on power tubes, not so much on the smaller tubes in this amp, the 12AX7s, 12AT7s. Those are already naturally humbucking. With 6L6s, you want those wires to be in phase with each other for noise canceling purposes. Still got a bunch of work to do here. I've elected to replace the power cord. I'm going to wire around the courtesy outlet and the phase switch. Those are irrelevant and not necessary, so they are going to be out of the circuit. And as you can see, we travel up here a bit. I haven't gotten to the bias supply stuff yet, or any of that, or even the master volume that I'm going to switch out. Actually, we're not going to switch that out. I'm going to leave that in place. We're just going to wire around it, wire it like an old school twin. Get rid of all the wires that went to that switch. So yeah, work is progressing slowly but carefully. I'm taking my time with this guy. I want to do this very, I take my time with all these amps, but this one's got history, so I want to make sure it's correct. And the owner, like I said earlier, wants to use it, wants to, use it for its intended purpose. So we got to make it safe and reliable. So anyway, more to come. All right, we're coming up on the end of this little jewel. Done a little more work than I had anticipated. This amp had the screwed up, messed up, weirdo Silverface reverb circuit, and I opted to take care of that little problem. As you can see here, we've got our vibrato channel first preamp cathode resistor and capacitor right here, and the normal channel first preamp cathode resistor and cap bypassed right here. And those have been replaced. I've been using these Mod 25 UF at 50 volts and really like them. Let me see if I can zoom in there a little further. These are both 1.5Ks here. All the rest of this is original in this surrounding area. We got our blue signal caps, which are usually pretty fine. So, and as we come down here to this area, you can see I've also replaced these two bypass arrangements here. These are the normal and vibrato channels. Both channels, second preamp, cathode, resistor, and capacitor bypassers right there and there. We've got a 820 here and a 2.2K in parallel with the caps there. Then down here, there is, where is that guy? Oh, it's down further away. We got another pair of bypassers here, hidden underneath that guy there. Those are the reverb recovery cathode and resistor, and also the vibrato cathode and resistor on the left here. This 2.7K and the 25 UF, and I added new wires at the bottom because, like I said, that was one of the weirdo features about Silverface. There's wires going all over the place. There was a pull boost circuit on this thing, which I had to take out. If we look down here, you'll see this jumper wire had to be added, and I replaced these two resistors because they were a little bit charred. That is in place of the master volume that we removed. That wire must be added. You can't just pull the thing out or it won't work. That jumper has to be added or it will not function. So that had to go in there. And then we have one more bypasser here. This is the vibrato cathode resistor and capacitor here for the other triode. And then as we come down here a little further, I replaced the bias splitter resistors up here. I wasn't going to so-called blackface the bias supply, but some things were out of whack up here, particularly this was a 68K, and of course the other one goes over to the old school, or not old school, but the former bias arrangement, which is a balance control. So we've now converted this into a true bias control, which controls the overall bias of the amplifier, the overall idle current. You can see I've left the Silverface configuration that has the two. We have a bias cap up here, so an extra reservoir cap. I like that actually. I actually add that sometimes to amps that don't have it. And then the regular bias cap is right down here for the bias supply. Tried to leave as much original as possible. The original master volume pot is there. It's the back switch part, if you'll remember, had just completely fallen apart. So we just left it in place, left the knob there. It's there, but it's not wired up to anything. And the amp has now been wired as a non-master volume arrangement. You can see, if we zoom into the power tube sockets, we've got new screen grid resistors. That's those 500 ohm 5 watt ceramics between pin 4 and 6. And then underneath there we have brand new grid stoppers, 1.5Ks. And also, as I mentioned earlier, I redid the filament wires. I like green and red because I'm a Christmassy kind of guy. And so I use green and red for those. But that allows me to see the proper phase of those filament wires without having to guess or track it down, or, you know. It's always best to use two colors there whenever you can. And we got a new power cable, and all the filter caps have been done. And yeah, like I said, there's a whole sack full of parts that had to come out to make the reverb circuit into a blackface reverb circuit, which is what it is now. And it's a fairly involved process, but I left the values alone for the phase inverter plate resistors. They are usually a 100 and an 82K. And I always like to leave them in place in these old amps here. I believe those are both, I think those are both 47K. Yeah, these two right here. And I always like to leave those in place to see what it sounds like. And if it sounds good, I leave it. Also, the long-tailed pair, the phase inverter grid resistors and the phase inverter cathode resistor. That's this one. And the grids are on the outside. I don't make those black face values just knee-jerk. I like to listen to it, see what it tells me. If I feel like, those values are not working or those resistors are not doing what they should do, then I'll go ahead and replace them. But I'm going to leave them for now and see what it sounds like and get a feel for how the amp's behaving before I just tear them out of there. Some of those things I agree with, and some of them, like the phase inverter plate resistors, the accepted norm in the blackface world is the 100K and the 82K. The 82 being here and the 100 being here. I don't know. I think that is responsible for some of the infamous blackface fart occasionally. There certainly are other contributors to that phenomenon, but I kind of think that's where some of it is. So anyway, we're all done with the guts of this thing. I have not yet powered it up. I got a brand new quad of JJ 6L6s from our good friends over at CE Distribution. Paid extra and got the burnt-in ones. And those are in my tube testers right now. And as soon as I get those tested and rated, we're going to start bringing this thing up on the Variac. All right. We are all done. Robin Zander, 73-ish. Fender Twin Reverb. Formerly had the pull boost and the master volume. And they are done away with. All finished with the work. Got the caps charged up. Idle current is set. I'm not going to tell you where I set it because, frankly, I don't want to hear it. Everybody who does what I do for a living, we all have a different idea about where to set idle current. Does it really make all that much difference? I'm not so sure, but I set it where I like to set it, and I don't have any complaints. So, yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this little video. I'm not going to do a play demo on it. It sounds like a really good twin reverb. There's, and there's plenty of Silverface twin reverb play demos out there. So go seek one of those out, of a good sounding one, and you'll know what this one sounds like. Reverb works, tremolo works. So, yeah, she's all back to original functionality, and I'm pretty pleased with it. Silver faces that get partially black-faced, and I did black-face this one a little bit more than I thought I was going to or had intended to from the beginning, but they tend to sound much better than black faces, honestly, I think. When you get some values in there correct, get the bias supply set correctly, get the reverb circuit worked over, and get it running the way Leo intended rather than the way CBS changed it to. Anyway, so all that stuff works and it sounds beautiful, and it's a wonderful little piece of rock and roll history. Robin Zander's Twin Reverb, as heard on Live at Budokan. And I'm not sure if I didn't do any research. I don't know if he ever used it in the studio. It's possible he did. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It was so long ago. Who knows if Robin even knows? I mean, we're talking early to mid 70s on through, 1980-ish. So, yeah, great little amp. Anyway. Well, that's all I know for today on this little jewel. Hope you've enjoyed this little journey through a piece of landmark rock and roll history. If you have any questions about anything we do here at Granville Guitars, seek us out on the web, www.granvilleguitars.com. You can also find us on Instagram and also on Facebook. That's all I know for today, kids. Be good to one another.